Hello and welcome to this Cove podcast. Today we have the pleasure in interviewing Lieutenant John Limbert. Lieutenant Limbert joined the Army in 2008 as a combat engineer and was posted to the 3rd Combat Engineer Regiment in Townsville. In 2015, he became a plant operator where he did time with the 17th Construction Squadron and then as an instructor at the School of Military Engineering. And in 2018 was named the Forces Command Soldier of the Year. In 2020, Lieutenant Limbert was successful in his submission to commission as an officer in the Australian Army, and on 8th of December 2021, he graduated from the Royal Military College Duntroon, having been allocated to the Royal Australian Corps of Transport. Today, we will be discussing Lieutenant Limbert's Soldier of the Year award and also his commissioning. Sir, welcome to the Cove, and thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Mark. Happy to be here.
All right, let's kick off. Let's start off by asking why you joined the Army, sir.
Yeah, so I always had a pretty keen desire to join the Army, and a bit of an Army history in my family on my father's side. So my father was in the reserves. He's from England, and his father and grandfather were both in World War I and II, respectively. And sort of hearing stories about that when I was a child, it just sort of gave me this sort of strong desire and pull towards wanting to serve. I mean, when I was 10 years old, I had an army party where we all put campaign on and had my friends come. And I grew up on a farm, so Dad drove around the tractor and we're all on the back of the tractor. So there was always something inside me that really wanted to join.
Well, that sounds all very infantry type oriented. So you've joined initially as a combat engineer. Was that allocated to you? Was it something you wanted to do? What was the story there?
No, it wasn't allocated to me. It was something I'd picked. Reading through all the job descriptions, it was such a diverse role, and the engineer corps, especially the things that they were doing, it really drew me towards wanting to be a combat engineer. There's just the diversity of the job role, watermanship, bridging, the search, all those sorts of things. It really, really sang to me.
Is it still the best corps in the Army? It is for me.
I know it would be for you, Mark. No, it's a fantastic corps. The thing about the engineer corps is definitely the people. You can go through some pretty hard times, pretty long days, and some pretty tough and technical work, but it's always the people that you have around you, that get you through it. My greatest memories from my time as an engineer definitely come from being around the people that I was with.
Fantastic, sir. Great response. So obviously you joined initially and you become a combat engineer. You later transferred to become a plant operator. Why was that?
Yeah, so when I was in holding troop in IETs, I went down to Puckapunyal and I got my Mog and Rover ticket. And so then when I posted to 3CR, the RSM, Warren Officer Doyle at the time, put us all into Spec Troop. And I remained in Spec Troop because of the driver's codes I had, built up a couple more, and then I went across to Plant Troop as a driver. And then from just being in there, just around the people, like I said before, they were so great. And so just the work that we were doing, the camaraderie I had there with 3CR Plant Troop, some of my best years, and those formative years in the Army, that really was the draw card for me to want to be a plant operator.
Fantastic. And in 2018, you received a commendation for distinguished service for your work in Iraq. Can you tell us a bit about that?
In 2017, deployed to Iraq early March, and I took over from a plant operator, Mick Haraway, and then their works manager they had over there was also a plant operator, Warrant Officer George. The job that we were doing in Iraq was predominantly engineer construction team for SOTG 632. And so we would just do all sorts of construction works that they required. Towards the end of Mick Haraway's trip, our partnership forces, 1st ISOF, were pushing deep into Mosul, and they needed to have an asset to help get them into the center of the city because there was, lots of rubble, cars. There was also BBIDs, ditches, berms, those sorts of things that the 1st ISOF counterterrorism services needed to be able to breach. And they didn't have that capability. They were predominantly a light-skinned unit. So they were given a lot of dozers and loaders from the Americans, and they needed someone to train them. They asked us if they asked the Australians, the 632, if someone would be able to train them. And Mick Harraway was there. And so he started off that training initially, sort of a 3-month period, ran the first 3 courses. And then from there, when I came, I had no idea that this is what I was going to be walking into. Did the handover takeover. And then from there, my whole 7-month trip, I was in Baghdad training people back-to-back courses in front end loader and dozer. And it was quite interesting. They would fly down from Mosul, they would do the course, and then they would fly back up, travel back up there to use the piece of plant equipment, essentially in the heart of the city, to help them get in. And it was, from what I was told, and also sort of what I know, it was a combat multiplier. Having that dozer was a key bit of equipment that really helped them. But it also, not just to push into the city, but one of the issues they had was with route deniability. They had VBIDs and also people getting into their command post positions. And so then we were teaching them how to set up berms, chicanes, how to set up ditches, and just give them a measure of protection so that they were able to have that standoff when they had the enemy or Daesh coming into them. In 2018, I received the Commendation for Distinguished Service in the Queen's Birthday Honours for that piece that I played in the War of Mosul.
Now, from previous discussions we've had, obviously we've worked together in the past. You said you formed some pretty good relationships, which are a little bit difficult given what the trainees had to go and do post the training with you. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so I really had sort of 2 weeks. They didn't know me. The course went for 14 days, so a 2-week operator course, and I really needed to just be able to engage them personally and build that trust with them quickly so I could get them to listen to me and teach them these skills, because they were going up there and they were dying, so I needed to pass on as much as I could to them in that short amount of time. And that really began with building trust. And so the way that I came up with to build trust with them quickly was by sort of learning everyone's name and making that personal connection with them. And I mean, it wasn't, they didn't have names that I was typically used to. So I split them all up into 2s and had them write their names on the board. And then my translator would write their names in English for me underneath so I could read it. And what I did is I would remember one person from the group of 2 and their name. And then I'd be able to sort of see who they were with and then just read off the board that second person, that was their name. So for instance, I've got Ahmed with Saif, and I'd be able to match those pairs up. And it only took me 2 to 3 days to learn every single person's name on the course, which really sort of added value. The translator, he actually said to me, he's like, how do you remember everyone's name? I don't even remember all their names, and it's not typical for you. But no, I had to really gain that trust with them. And that was that key piece, because I needed to just connect with them on that personal level. There was that. And there was also meal times as well. So the training day began at 7 a.m. for us and would go through to around 1 o'clock. But they would have breakfast delivered out to them. And I would sit down on the ground with them, share breakfast, share food with them. And that was a really, really important piece in gaining that trust from them and building those relationships. And sitting around with them, we'd talk and we'd laugh, and they would teach me words and things to say, and tell me about their lives. So it was really key to building those relationships, just so I could train them and teach them everything they needed to do. But
yeah, that's fantastic, and it's the little things that have gone such a long way for you. So well done on that. In the same year, so 2018, you were named the Forces Command Soldier of the Year. Congratulations, and can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, thank you. So 2018, I did my soils technician course. I was still a plant operator at this time, posted to 6 ESR with 17 Construction Squadron, and we went down and we did ACAP in Yalata in South Australia. And so I think just from the work I did there as a soils technician, I don't know, also sort of I did a bit of mentoring with some of the soldiers. From that, nominated at the unit level, and the nomination went up to the brigade and then to FORCOM. And then from that, all the brigade nominations, all those people, there was about 26 of us, flew into Canberra, and then we went to the War Memorial, and then we had Warrant Officer Matt Lyons, MG, talk to us about his experience when he was in Afghanistan and what he went through to receive his Medal for Gallantry. And then we went to Jervis Bay and we went to, did some leadership exercises there with the Navy. And that was actually pretty eye-opening for me because I think I'd been in the Army sort of roughly 10 years then, hadn't worked with the Navy before at all. And I really had a good glimpse at their initial training they went through. We went into their simulator of when the ship is taking on water and there's been breaches in the hull of the ship and how you block those breaches up. They flood the simulator. It's on hydraulics, so it moves backward and forward, so the water's sloshing in there. And it was just all these people that had just come together. They're being picked by their brigades to work in small teams and try plug up the holes. And that was quite a good experience. And we spent the night there. We also did some fire training as well. And it was interesting for me to know that every single sailor is taught those skills, and they're expected to be able to do those in case of an emergency on the ship. And it's not something that I really appreciated until just last year when I was on my first ship, so the HMAS Adelaide, for the first time, to sort of get an understanding of how enclosed they are, and anyone, if they're near wherever the incident is, they will just have to rush to that incident and get ready and try and save the ship. So it was a good experience.
But let's talk about post that. So you're awarded that in 2018. If my memory serves me correctly, spoke at the inaugural leadership conference in Canberra,
Yes.
and you also did the Kokoda Trail.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about that?
So the Kokoda Trail was the year after, so in 2019, it was around Anzac Day, and that was just a group from Forces Commands, and there was a couple of people that were also on the Forcom Soldier of the Year, so it wasn't specifically just myself on there from that. There was a few of us that were on that got to go, and it was a PME type exercise where we flew over service air to Papua New Guinea, then we flew to Popondetta and then drove to Kokoda and walked the Kokoda Trail with Adventure Kokoda. And every single person that was on the trip, they were given a focus topic to talk about. And so as we moved through, the topic, it may have been about a particular person. I mean, I spoke about John Curtin, or it may have been about a particular battle or a skirmish or something. So it was pretty good that along that whole way, someone would speak, and tell us a little bit about something, as well as the guide from Adventure Kokoda that we did the trek with.
Fantastic. And you all made it?
We all made it, yeah. Everyone made it, yeah. So it was, some of those days were pretty big days, and we were in, nice shoes. The weather wasn't too bad. It did rain a couple of times there, but it gave you sort of a glimpse. You didn't exactly feel for how the soldiers were on the Kokoda Trail, but you glimpsed of how hard it would have been. Especially, there's a couple of hills there where they're so steep, and there's tree roots that the foot positioning, it's just not stable. Everything's slippery, and just going up and down that with weapons, ammunition, carrying stretchers with people, it would have been tough. So reflecting on those times, it was pretty special just to sort of understand what the soldiers, and also Papua New Guineans as well, would have gone through on the Kokoda Trail.
Fantastic. So let's skip forward a bit. 2020, you decided you wanted to become an officer. What made you want to commission, and was this something you originally wanted to do when you joined up?
So I did originally want to join up as an officer, engineering officer. I was unsuccessful. So at the selection board, I didn't have the command presence that they were quite looking for, and I didn't have the experience as well that they thought would lead me to success. But they said, we've got plenty of positions as a combat engineer. We can have you in the next couple of months if you want to. And of course I said yes. It's something I very much wanted to do. So I did want to commission originally. Didn't work out, but I look back on it now, and I've had a great service so far, and I'm happy that I have gone the pathway that I have. I think, especially from being at RMC, I wouldn't have been ready. I definitely wasn't mature enough, And I think that it was the best outcome to go spend some time as a soldier before commissioning.
Good on you. Well done. And so you obviously, as a junior NCO, you went through the in-service commissioning process where you had to go through RMC and the likes again. What was it like, the process of the in-service commissioning system? Was it difficult? Was it easy to do? Tell us about that.
Yeah, fairly easy, fairly straightforward. I mean, just expressing that interest to your chain of command first, and sort of letting them know that's what you're interested in. That's sort of where it sort of starts, and you have those conversations with your boss and with your troop sergeant. But everything on the CMA website for in-service transfers, it's pretty easy to follow. That expressions of interest, and then you'll go and you'll do the psych assessment. If you need to, if it's required, redo your aptitude test. I had to do mine because it was over 12 years or 12 or 13 years since I completed one when I first joined the Army. And then from there, medical, and then you'll just wait. After I did so there was a bit of a wait time between the submission of my paperwork, so the expression of interest, and my transfer to CMA, a couple of months until I had that psych assessment booked. But when I completed that, I got a call the week after saying that they've had spots open up on the next board, and they invited me come down to participate on a board, and did the officers selection board, found out at the end successful. And then so from there, it was just waiting until I received that signal, accepted the offer, and waited for the next year.
So how long was that time? So from the second you said to your boss, I want to become an officer, to the time you got selected, how long was that, do you think?
About 6 months. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah.
And then obviously once you're selected, you then have to wait for the course to start. So it's probably a couple of months after that as well.
Yeah. So I just missed, like, the course of when I got the okay, it was around the middle of the year. And so intakes for that middle of the year had already occurred, which actually worked out better in my favour. And so I was on the intake for January 2021.
Okay, great. So you're off to RMC. You're a corporal. Did you have to complete all the training to become an officer? Was there phases that you got to RPL? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I just said before that it worked out in my favour, not being able to enter in that mid-year of 2020 and going into that start of 2021. The reason for that is I was that first group, the start of 2021, of ORs that were commissioning going through RMC that didn't have to do third class. So I essentially saved myself 6 months. So that was Brigadier Anna Duncan. She started that, and it was at first they sent out some RPL packages. I was sort of up in the air about wanting to complete third class, and I really at the stage before I got there, I did want to do third class. I mean, it's a baptism by fire. You know, you would have been in there with that group from the beginning. Cohorting, able to pass on skills as well. But, you know, for bigger picture, that's just sort of more personal. It makes sense not to fill those positions with ORs and have them just start at second class straight away. You know, and looking back now, it was definitely the best option. 1 year down there, straight into second class. I didn't have to do an RPL. It was, they started to try and get people doing RPLs, but then they just made it that if you were an OR, you would go straight into second class if you'd done JLC.
Right, okay. And so given that experience, obviously you've gone straight into second class. Did you find the training easy? I mean, going straight into second class, there might have been a few little things you missed out on in third class, but overall as a junior NCO coming into the system, did you find the training easy?
I mean, I didn't find it easy. I mean, there were some parts, conceptualizing a lot of the things wasn't too difficult for me. Yet the amount of work that we're expected to produce in a short amount of time, and I mean, you go down there. RMC is about shoots, like you do a lot of them, you know, and that was a big steep climb for me, having to plan in detail on your own in that short amount of time period and produce a lot of deliverables. That was a big steep learning curve for myself. Didn't get through on my first 2 shoots, but after that, I was successful on the rest. So there's a bit of a learning curve at the beginning, but
Yep.
you know, and from being a combat engineer, then plant operator, I hadn't participated in dismounted infantry for quite some time, and I didn't do it that much when I was in plant troop, only really in spec troop. So it was a fair while ago. So getting back into that conventional warfare style training, it was a little bit dusty, but I got there.
Yeah, I bet not getting through those first two shoots, you would have got a lot from that and would have made it a little bit easier for the future ones. But given you were more older and more experienced, how did you go fitting in with the younger generation that I presume was there?
I think I was able to fit in fairly well with the younger generation. I mean, there were quite a few older people, a few retreads. Most of the people were younger, coming from ADFA. A lot of the people that didn't come from ADFA, that came from third class, they were a fair bit old. They were a bit older, but I think we had a lot to offer each other. I mean, Bridget Free, she's a SIG lieutenant now. She lived next to me. She was a ADFA graded in cyber, and she was able to teach me a fair bit of stuff with Word, with PowerPoint. Teach me about study, about tactics, and it's really something being around such young. Not that I'm that much older than them, but such young minds. Everyone's keen. The attitude is really positive. They all want to be there, so I think being around them is a good thing. And some of them were quite infectious with their attitudes. So it was nice.
Fantastic. What would be your advice to any young soldiers or junior NCOs out there who are thinking about commissioning?
Yeah, so my advice first would be, just to sort of get it out there and start speaking about it. Speak to sort of your boss about it. So first thing, you can have a conversation and start understanding what it's all about. I don't think everyone out there is aware that as an OR now, you don't have to do third class. And I think third class isn't so much a thing anymore anyway. It's a 12-month, I think RMC's changed once again from when I went through, which is only a short time ago, that it's now a 12-month course. So it's 1 year, hit out down there, and it gives you a lot of opportunity. I mean, I was engineer corps, now I'm transport, and go there with an open mind that all corps are a possibility, all jobs are a possibility. It's so, because there's lots of people down there, lots of senior NCOs and officers that are able to sort of teach you about their experiences, talk to you about their cause, and maybe you'll change your mind about where you want to go and go somewhere different, change to a different corps.
Do you wish you had done this earlier, or do you think you did it in the right place in your career and your life?
I think the timing was right, because I always wanted to go back to the school of military engineering as an instructor. Like, that was a goal of mine. After I left there as an IET, I really wanted to go back there. That was one of my key milestones as a soldier. Promote to corporal and instruct at the school, go back to the home of the sapper. And I got to do that. And so I was at that crossroad where I can continue on, and I may have been a sergeant by now, or I'm at that point where I'm still young enough, still medically fit, that I was able to go down there and complete the training. And my first year at SME in 2019, I was really undecided about it, but over the Christmas break, I came back and I knew it's what I wanted to do.
You ended up as an RACT officer. That's a long way from engineer plant operator. How did that all come about?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those corps that was on the cards for me. I mean, there's certain similarities between the corps as well, but just the opportunities available is what won me over in the end. I mean, particularly with how the Army's heading towards littoral, I really wanted to post to 10 FSB to 35 Water Transport Squadron and have a go in the littoral space, in the amphibious space. And that was one of the big draw cards for me. But not only that, posting locations as a logistics officer, because from being transport, once you sort of start promoting, you're a logistics officer essentially. It opens up a lot more opportunity to you, and that was a big draw card for me. Why I've sort of wanted to become an RACT officer. already had that background as well. I mean, I from being a plant operator, I have engineer plant operators under my command at the moment. So there's still some familiarity there from my past as a soldier, and still some things that are quite sort of foreign to me as well in the water transport amphibious space. So mixing those two things together, was really good. But that's sort of how I ended up as being a RECT officer. Just it was on the right sort of near core allocation. I still hadn't quite decided. I mean, because I love the core, like I spoke about it before, the engineer core, love the people. I mean, I didn't go to RMC to leave, to put that behind me. Like it was my second preference, the engineers, and I would have been glad to go back, but I did want to try something different, and I wanted different experiences, and the people in the RACT are just as good, and I've had a great couple of years so far, so I'm pretty happy with my choice.
Well done. All right. I note that you're currently studying a master's in business administration. How is that going? And do you wish you had done this earlier in your career? Yeah,
I'm in my third subject. Just submitted an assignment last night. It's not going so bad. Maybe I wish I would have started a bit earlier in my career. I probably would have had a lot less pressure. I mean, particularly at the moment of doing the masters, I'm in the middle of a subject at the moment. I'm acting 2IC of the squadron, and I've also, my fiance and we're getting married in October, so we're just sort of at that back end of planning the wedding and then posting out as well. So it's a bit of a stressful year. There's a bit going on. So for that reason, maybe I wish I'd done it a bit earlier. But look, I'm just happy to be doing it now. And really at 35, I'm not too old to be studying. So
yeah, and professionally developing yourself at any level is nothing but a bonus. So what is the future for John Limbert? Can we expect to see you running the Army in the next 20 years?
20 years from lieutenant to chief of army, that'd be
maybe a bit more.
A bit of a record, wouldn't it? That's a bit
maybe a few more years. But what do you want? Do you want to stay in for life? Is this going to be a stepping stone, or what's going there?
Subunit command's definitely what I want, and that's sort of what I've got my eyes on, and that's still seven years away from now if I get subunit command. So that's definitely a goal for me as an officer to achieve that. I'm at 15 years this year, and I didn't think that, I'd get to that. I looked at 10 and thought that was a lot. And now I think I could probably do a fair few more years. So at the moment, just looking at my next few postings, trying to work towards subunit commands. Am I going to be a lifer? I don't know. Planning on starting a family with my fiance next year. So, things can change in the future. So I'm not going to say I'm going to be a lifer. I'm not going to say I'm getting out either. We'll have to see. We'll have to see where things take me.
All right, then. Well, look, sir, congratulations on such a fantastic career to date. Thanks so much for spending time with the Cove today. To the listeners, thanks again for joining us on this Cove podcast. More information on in-service commissioning can be found on the CMA SharePoint page. Make sure you keep an eye out for more podcasts in the future, and don't forget to download the Cove app. It's PME in your pocket, anywhere, anytime.